Today's video is brought to you by creativesdothis.com.
I just wanted to let everyone know that I appreciate all your prayers and all your thoughts and everything that, those of you that have sent messages to me, and especially messages on the site. And I know this is going to be really hard for some people, but I need to let you know that they did find her. And she's now with the Lord. She's not with us anymore. I had a feeling about this before. Maybe God put it on my heart, prepared me for it. I don't know. But it was not an accidental thing. I'm just going to tell you that. Somebody did this to her, and the police are working on it right now.
By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. So if all of that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you join the Dark Case family now by hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question. Give me the funniest nickname and the reason for it that you know. Let me know down in the comments. All of your support over on Patreon, as well as right here via channel memberships on YouTube, are so appreciated. And I really can't thank you all enough. However, thank you. But now, on with the video. Chelsey Lea Gauthier grew up in Abbotsford, British Columbia. To her family, Chelsey wasn't just another name in a video like this. She was their light and their life. Her father Ray raised her as a single dad. He often speaks about how close they were, how she had a goofy, fun-loving personality, and how she could really make anyone laugh. She didn't have a mean bone in her body, he said. She loved helping people. She was caring, loving, beautiful, and she loved animals.
So this very, very first clip I'm going to share with you is kind of a preamble of an ad that I was going to do with Chelsey. And a little bit of goofing around, having a little bit of fun. You'll hear Carrie Ann in the background. And of her just kind of warming up on the mic, and it's kind of fun.
Hi, my name's Chelsey, and I have a cat and an iguana, and I love them. And yeah,
say something about
my dad does radio productions, whatever how the heck you say that.
Productions.
Productions. There you go.
Ray was actually a grandfather, as Chelsey had 2 young daughters of her own too. They were just toddlers when she disappeared. Family members say that being a mother was the most important role in her life. She was protective, affectionate, and even at just 22 years old, she carried the weight of providing for her girls with real determination. Her brother Jeremiah described her as his best friend. When I couldn't say much to my parents or anyone else, I could talk to her about anything, he said. Their bond seemed unshakable. Things weren't always easy, but when she struggled, Chelsey tried to stay bubbly for everyone else. Her cousin Amanda later recalled, she was lively, she was bubbly. Even when she was down, she would always try and help others. I also want to mention that Chelsey has been identified as an Indigenous person, something that should not be ignored about this case.
There's a cat, by the way.
On the way. Hey guys, I'm Tyler.
With the cat? Say hi! Anyways, continue.
I did some digging and found out that Chelsey actually used to have a YouTube channel, and she had it with someone called Angel. I think they share the same last name judging by the channel name, so I'm guessing the two of them are related, but I'm not 100% sure. I did a little more digging, and in the intro to their first video on that channel, it looks like their channel was originally called Crackerjack and Psycho, and I believe that crackerjack is actually a strain of a certain plant, and that looks like the nickname that Chelsey is using. And, well, look at Chelsey in a still image from that intro, and it all kind of adds up. She also mentions Stoner Wednesdays in the video, and also talks about doing illicit substances in a jokey way, so yeah. And you might be thinking, what does that have to do with anything? I'm just going to say that it does tie into this case as it progresses, because I believe it could point towards Chelsey being a green enjoyer, and this means that if someone had access to a lot of it, they could possibly have the power of persuasion over her. And also want to just add that I'm not saying that jazz cabbage is bad. And if you consume it, it doesn't make you bad at all. I genuinely don't care. I just thought that all of this was an interesting insight into the case that I've pieced together. And I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere else in the coverage, not that there really is any. This video is sponsored by Creatives Do This, a platform that I've helped to launch that features real interviews with real artists, candle makers, musicians and creatives of all kinds who are making it work. Right now we're looking for creatives to feature. So if you've made money from your creativity, whether it's a full-time career or a new side hustle, and you want to share how you did it, we'd love to hear your story. It's just a short text-based interview and it takes around 10 minutes. And in return you get free lifetime access to everything that the platform becomes. Plus your work will get featured to inspire others and to build your brand. Hit the link in the description or the pinned comment to take the quick interview and to become one of the 100 founding members. There's now less than 50 spaces left. www.creativesdothis.com. Friends remember Chelsey as being adventurous, sometimes impulsive, but always loyal. They say that she wasn't afraid of hard work. So when someone asked for help, she showed up for them. And that included the day that she agreed to trim some plants for an acquaintance. And when I'm talking about plants, yes, I mean plants, that kind of plant. In fact, we're talking about Satan's salad, the one that'll toss your brain. I just made that analogy up, not bad. Copyright Dark Case 2025. This job was situated at an illegal grow operation, one that was located in the rural forests outside of Mission. This decision would bring her into contact with a new world of people, and namely someone who lived on the edges of legality and secrecy. This was a world that Chelsey did not belong in. She couldn't have known how dangerous this new connection would become. Father Ray later admitted that he wished that he could have stopped her. He said, if she was not doing that, she was not with those people involved with this, she will be standing with us right now. I believe that this is one of those choices that seemed small at the time, but in the end it changed everything. Because when she went there, Chelsey never came home. Instead, her family would be left searching, first with hope, and then with growing dread. And of course, things would only get worse, and her family would be left with a devastating heartbreak. However, in the days before her disappearance, Chelsey was still just Chelsey. She was a young mother, a sister, a friend, a daughter who ended every phone call with her dad by simply saying, "I love you." No one could have known that those would be the last words that he would ever hear from his daughter. Abbotsford sits in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, just over an hour's drive from Vancouver. It feels both close to the city and far enough away to be its own world. It's surrounded by farmland, rolling fields of corn, blueberry farms, as well as dairy barns that stretch across the landscape. But beyond those fields, the mountains rise quickly, and then the forest takes over. Those areas are dense and remote, the kind of place where someone can disappear. Abbotsford is often called the city in the country. It has a reputation for community spirit, for family neighbourhoods, for schools and churches at the heart of town. But like many large growing communities, it also has its struggles, namely due to illicit substances and everything that comes with them. These mean that local youths get drawn into dangerous circles, and it's not unusual for crime to spill over from nearby large cities. For Chelsey, Abbotsford was her home. It's where she grew up. It's where she raised her 2 little girls. It's where her friends remembered her laughter as it echoed in backyards and schoolyards, before she stepped into a car that would drive her out of the familiar streets of Abbotsford and into the woods near Mission, where she would never return. This backdrop matters, because Abbotsford is a kind of place where a disappearance shakes everyone, where neighbours stop and talk about it at the grocery store, where green ribbons suddenly appeared, pinned to shirts and backpacks. this story wasn't just one family's tragedy, it became Abbotsford's tragedy too. The last confirmed sighting of Chelsey was on July the 27th, 2017. That morning, she was seen at a McDonald's in Abbotsford, where witnesses noticed that she wasn't alone. She was with two men. One of them was older, in fact, decades older than Chelsey. The other man was his associate, and we will hear from him later. From that McDonald's parking lot, Chelsey climbed into their vehicle. Their destination was a forested backroads near Mission. This was a hidden grow operation tucked deep into the trees. Chelsey had agreed to help him trim the plants, and it was supposed to just be simple work. A few hours and then home once again. But once she left Abbotsford that day, she would never return. By July the 30th, just 3 days later, alarm bells were ringing, and they were ringing loud. Chelsey's family reported her missing to the Abbotsford Police Department. For those who knew her, the silence was terrifying. Chelsey was always in contact with friends and family. She never stayed offline for long. And most important of all, she would never ever abandon her two little girls. Everyone knew that something was very, very wrong. When investigators spoke to the older man that picked her up, his story was shaky. First, he claimed that Chelsey had gotten scared in the night, that she thought there were bears nearby, and for some reason that meant that she had hitchhiked home alone. However, no one else had seen her since that morning. And then later, his story changed once again. This time he said that she had left with a boyfriend and another person. The contradictions were glaring, but one thing stayed constant throughout it all. Chelsey was gone, and now her family were desperate for answers. Friends and relatives organised searches. They scoured Abbotsford and Mission. They handed out posters. They shared her face across social media. Her father Ray took to YouTube. He posted video updates about his daughter. He begged for Chelsey's safe return. In one, his voice cracked as he recalled their final exchange. She said, "I love you," and I said, "I love you too," and that was it. For nearly 3 weeks, the family lived in limbo, but still clinging on to hope. They had no idea that Chelsey's body already lay hidden in a shallow grave deep in the woods. On August 16th, 2017, nearly 3 weeks after Chelsey was last seen, investigators returned to the backroads northeast of Mission, namely Sylvester Road and Dale Road, a stretch of rural land where thick forest swallows the sound of passing cars. It was the kind of place where secrets could stay hidden for a long time, perhaps forever.
I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about Chelsey. She had a very big heart. She loved crows, happy faces. One time I took her to Calgary on a road trip with me because I'm a truck driver. She really liked the magpies. One time I taught her how to drink chocolate milk. I told her, open it up and drink it down as fast as you can. That's the best way to drink chocolate milk. She used to love hamburgers. She loved going to get hamburgers. She was very, very, very much into photography. She loved to take pictures, and she was so good at it. She was really amazing at makeup. She was an artist. She was also very, very artistic, a lot like her sister Carrie, which I love very much. Carrie, I love you. I can't really mention much about the investigation because the investigators that I had, I am respecting what they're doing, and if anyone has any questions regarding the investigation, they are to contact them. But the reason why I'm making this video is to thank all of you for being so kind. I will probably have more to say later. Except my storage locker in Aldergrove, I have a lot of snowmen that I used to give her. Every year I used to get her a snowman. I'm so grateful I have all of that stuff
Chelsey was an amazing girl. She loved so many people. She was fun. She loved to laugh. She was so gifted. And this is an absolute tragedy. But I am so confident that the police are going to do a phenomenal job on getting to the bottom of this. Again, I say it so strongly, please keep an eye on what your kids are doing. Bring awareness and addiction awareness to them and let them know. Because you could be in this predicament tomorrow. No, she did not pass away from a car accident. It was because she was involved with it that her life was taken from her. Please, 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 keep an eye on your kids. Their social media, the things they do, the people they hang out with, their phones, like monitor their phones. It's not an invasion of privacy. You are their parent. It is your right to protect your child. Protect your child for the love of God. I could never want this to ever happen to anyone. Until next time, until we talk again, God bless all of you and your children and your family. In the name of Yeshua.
Police had already conducted a cursory search of the property, but this time they looked a little deeper, and this time they found what they feared the most. In a shallow grave near a tent was Chelsey Lea Gauthier. She was wrapped in a sheet, shrouded by the soil of the same wooded property that she had travelled to earlier that day. The discovery confirmed what her family had already begun to sense. Chelsey was never coming home. Her daughters would never see their mother again. At a press conference, Corporal Frank Zhang faced the cameras. From the evidence collected so far, investigators believe that Miss Gauthier's death was not random. This case was now officially a homicide. Investigators appealed to anyone that might have seen Chelsey any time in the final days of July to come forward. In the early days of the operation, police did not release her cause of death, and forensics was still underway. But behind closed doors, the autopsy told the truth. Chelsey's time on this earth had been ended from a sharp force strike to her back. It was sudden, and it was fatal. Investigators could now see that this was no accident. For the Gauthier family, the news shattered them. Ray recalled the moment that he walked into a police station looking for answers. Detectives told him that his daughter had been found. And here he is from his own YouTube channel, talking about his thoughts and feelings at that time.
But I appreciated all your prayers, and I want you guys to know too that God did not hear, it's not that he didn't hear your prayer. I think God was saving her from a very rough life that she had ahead of her. He knows what he's doing. I've had my moments where I've gotten upset with God, but I do know one thing. He has her, and I'll see her again.
And as we can see, there's grief, but there's also determination. Determination for justice, and for Chelsey to not be forgotten. In his eyes, it was the green and the world that surrounds it that had drawn his daughter into danger. And I guess that touches onto the whole argument surrounding legalization.
And for those of you that do smoke this garbage, I hope this is a wake-up call for you to stay away from that crap. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's good for medicinal value and this. Well, yeah, sure, yeah. It's absolutely no good. Maybe in tablet form for people and need pain relief. But I'll tell you one thing right now. Our country is thinking about legalizing that garbage. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm going to do my very best to stop it. There's nothing good about it.
The community stepped in to support the family. A GoFundMe raised money for the funeral. Messages poured in from across Canada. Somebody wrote, "May her memory be eternal." Another said, "I only met Chelsey once, but she struck me as very good-natured. May she rest in peace." Others simply said, "R.I.P. sweet angel." Vigils were held. Friends and family wore green ribbons, Chelsey's favourite colour. But for all the love, the support and the grieving, one truth remained. Nobody had been arrested. Nobody had been charged. The man that Chelsey was last seen with was walking free. and the wait for justice was only just beginning. Even before Chelsey's body was found in August of 2017, lurking in the shadows of her disappearance was a man who, from the very beginning, drew the attention of investigators. He was much older than Chelsey. In fact, he was more than 60 years old in 2017. He was a man who lived on the outskirts of Abbotsford and Mission. He was not a part of Chelsey's circle, and he was not a family friend. He was someone that she only crossed paths with through an ultimately dangerous arrangement. This man ran an illegal left-handed asparagus grower in the forest. It was hidden between gravel roads and dense trees, an operation that was far from ordinary life in Abbotsford. He offered workers cash or sometimes the green itself in exchange for help clipping his plants. Her father Ray would later stress that she was never employed by him, that she had simply agreed to trim plants in return for her own. It was supposed to be just a brief exchange, one single day of work. But this connection linked Chelsey to a man who was far more secretive and far more dangerous than she ever could have imagined. And as police pieced together her final movements, his presence loomed larger and larger. He had been the last person seen alone with her. He admitted that they went to his crop together in the Mission backwoods. And yet, despite the connection, despite what seemed obvious, no arrest came. In fact, for 5 long years, the case stalled. Police called it an active investigation. But for Chelsey's family, it felt like an endless limbo. They had lost Chelsey, they had buried Chelsey, but they still didn't know why or when or how justice would ever come. During those years, Ray kept his daughter's memory alive online. He became known to many as Trucker Ray. Through his YouTube channel, he shared updates. He shared his grief and also his pleas for help. In one early video, his voice cracked as he said, "Somebody did this to her, and the police are working on it right now." In another, he admitted the guilt that haunted him. "I could have possibly put a stop to what happened to her," he said. Ray urged other parents to learn from this tragedy. Educate yourselves, this could be you tomorrow. Evidence overall was pretty limited. The crime scene had been outdoors. This means it had been exposed to weather, animals, and time. The Crown would need a much stronger case, slowly built up piece by piece. But every year that was passing without an arrest would only deepen the family's frustrations. They knew who she had last been with, they knew where she had gone, and they feared that the system was failing her. Ray later said that he had no idea what had changed between 2017 and 2022, only that the wait had been unbearable. However, he tipped his hat to investigators for never letting this case go cold, although he admits those years were some of the darkest of his life. And by the time 2022 arrived, Chelsey's daughters had now had 5 years growing up without their mother. Father Ray still wears the green ribbon to this day, and the community still wanted answers. It was Saturday, September the 10th, 2022. On that day, the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team finally gave an answer that everyone had been waiting on. At last, they made an arrest. At a press conference outside the Abbotsford Police Department, Sergeant Timothy Perotti spoke to the media. Standing before the cameras, he said the words that Chelsey's family had waited years to hear. Charges have been approved. Gary Loesch has been arrested for second-degree murder and indignity to human remains. The relief was overwhelming, but this case was not over by a long shot. Chelsey's father Ray admitted that when police called him with the news, his emotions were still mixed. "Just a whole ton of emotions hitting me," he told reporters. "But yeah, it was just a nice sense of relief. There is some closure there. But I mean, it's just begun now." The day of the arrest was described by Ray as one that he had dreaded, because now he knew that reliving the details would bring everything back. He also said it was a good day, because at last there was a chance of accountability. "Our whole family has been waiting for this for 5 years, he told Global News. And now the fight for justice was moving forwards. But as the years had already shown, nothing about this case would be simple, and this arrest was only just the beginning.
She would say anything to us. We all knew each other's lives, and then all of a sudden It went dark.
Saturday, Gauthier's cousins and best friends came to the Abbotsford Police Department to question an IHIT spokesperson, demanding to know why investigators had not acted sooner.
When everybody is saying, this is who it is, this is what happened, this is the evidence, why, I just don't understand why it would take 5 years.
IHIT not willing to speak on the specifics of the evidence that had led to Loesch. Those close to Chelsey Gauthier say at the time she had been looking for a job to support herself.
And she was trying to get in a better spot for her kids.
He goes to prison and pays for what he did because she didn't deserve that.
IHIT now says that Gary Loesch will be held in police custody over the weekend and that he is set to appear in court for his first appearance on Friday. MMIWG, Global News.
So for the family, this was a bittersweet moment. Closure in one sense, but also the reopening of a deep hurt. Because now, after years of silence, they would have to sit through a trial that would reveal just how dark this case was. And Ray wasn't the only one who had been waiting all of this time. Chelsey's friends gathered at the press conference that day too. Some voiced frustration with how long it had taken. One said, "We all knew his character. He had threatened a friend of ours. It was just a lot of stuff that pointed to him." The sense in the community was clear. Gary Loesch had always been the suspect. It was just a matter of proving it. The trial would reveal evidence that shocked even those who thought they already knew the full story. And when the verdict finally came in 2025, well, brace yourself for that one. Loesch himself was no stranger to the police. As we know, at the time that Chelsey met her end, he was running an illegal grow operation. And that's how the agreement that Chelsey would do some clipping in return for some product, something that seemed to make sense for both of them, but it placed Chelsey in Gary Loesch's orbit, and that was a pull that she would never escape.
And we'll see you next time, hopefully in 2025 with some positive results and information and a positive video that I can tell you that he's now in jail permanently for the rest of his life. God bless you all in the name of Yeshua. Chelsey, I miss you very much. Bye, everyone.
The trial of Gary Loesch began in February of 2025. It had now been more than 7 years since Chelsey's disappearance. The courtroom in Abbotsford was filled almost every single day. Family members, friends and supporters came to bear witness. Many still wore those green ribbons pinned to their clothes, a silent tribute to Chelsey. The Crown presented a case that was largely circumstantial. There were no eyewitnesses to the actual act, and Gary Loesch himself never took the stand, but the evidence painted a picture that was difficult to ignore. First came the phone records. They placed Loesch in the area of Sylvester Road and Dale Road on July 27, 2017, the very day that Chelsey vanished. They also showed him returning there in the days after. Then came photographs found on Loesch's phone, images which showed Chelsey taken at the grow-up, and these images were captured on the last day that Chelsey was seen alive. The most damning piece of physical evidence was the sheet, that same sheet that Chelsey's body had been wrapped in, before then being buried in a shallow grave. Forensic testing revealed a DNA match to Gary Loesch. It wasn't a full profile, just partial, but it was enough to link him to the scene. Loesch's own words also undermined him. When first questioned, he told police that Chelsey had become frightened of bears and hitchhiked home, and as we know, later he changed his story, this time saying she left with a boyfriend and someone else. The judge would later point to these lies as proof that Loesch's accounts could not be trusted. A witness named Bill, a friend of Loesch, testified that he had driven both Loesch and Chelsey up to the grow-up that day, so we can guess that Bill was the driver of the car that picked Chelsey up from the McDonald's parking lot. Bill said that he was supposed to return to the grow and pick them up later, but when he returned, only Gary Loesch was waiting. According to Bill, Loesch claimed that Chelsey had left in the night, that she was gone by the time morning came, but investigators believed otherwise. Justice Dev Delay called the Crown's case circumstantial but compelling. He said the location of Chelsey's body was especially significant. After all, she was buried on the very property that she had gone to with Loesch. Inconceivable, he said, that she could have left alive, been ended somewhere else, and then brought back to the property to be buried there. The judge also dismissed Gary Loesch's suggestion that someone else might have been responsible. He had floated theories about the people that he worked for, that they may have thought that Chelsey was an informant. But the judge was clear those claims were not believable. The autopsy revealed that Chelsey's time on this earth was ended from one sharp force strike to her back. It was just one blow, but that was enough. The judge noted that there were unanswered questions about motive, and that because she had been found unclothed from the waist down, there may have been a sexual component. But he stressed that there was no way to prove intention beyond a reasonable doubt, and it was for that reason that he ruled out second-degree murder. To convict on that charge, the Crown would need to be able to show intent to kill. Instead, the judge concluded that the case met the standard for manslaughter, and he added a second conviction, indignity to human remains. This is because Chelsey had not only had her time ended, but had also then been hidden in a shallow grave. For Chelsey's family, the mixed verdict was a shock. Yes, Gary Loesch had been found guilty, and yes, the court did agree that he was responsible, but the word murderer would never be attached to his name. And now, perhaps most devastating of all, he was allowed to walk free on bail whilst awaiting sentencing. A bail, by the way, that was only $5,000. Father Ray stood outside the courthouse still wearing that green ribbon. He said, "What we're doing now is hoping and praying that he will get the maximum for manslaughter, whatever they can give him." His son Jeremiah, Chelsey's brother, echoed that frustration. He called his sister his best friend, and he said, "Honestly, I think he's a flight risk and it's very concerning." For the family, the trial had given answers, but it had brought no real peace. They left the courtroom that day with the truth confirmed. Gary Loesch had killed Chelsey. However, the Canadian justice system had not given them the closure that they hoped for. After the verdict in July of 2025, the case moved to sentencing. Manslaughter in Canada carries a maximum penalty of life in prison, but most sentences range between 4 and 15 years. For Chelsey's family, that possibility was difficult to accept, because to them, the loss of Chelsey was permanent, and any sentence given to Loesch would feel far too short.
The man covered up with a mask and hoodie as he enters the courthouse in Abbotsford is Gary Loesch, and following a trial that lasted months, he's about to learn his fate after being charged with the second-degree murder of 22-year-old Chelsey Gauthier.
He was a good person, a good soul, and you know, she was my best friend.
Gauthier, who was Métis, was last seen July 27, 2017, when she helped Loesch tend to his grow operation in a remote mountainous area near Mission. She was and her body was later found by police wrapped in a sheet and buried in a shallow grave on the mountain.
When she died, a part of me died because she had such an incredible sense of humor. She was goofy. She was fun.
The court heard Loesch had provided various versions to explain Gauthier's disappearance, but the judge didn't believe any of them, saying he satisfied Loesch killed the victim and that there were no other plausible theories or other possibilities. In finding the accused guilty of manslaughter rather than second-degree murder, the judge said Crown had failed to prove the element of intent. Mr. Loesch's attempts to conceal Miss Gauthier's body, his denial of being with her, and his lies to police do not necessarily equate to proof of intent.
This is still a victory. It's been established he did it. He's going to get time. We just hope that the system will give him as much time as possible.
Loesch was also found guilty of interfering with a body. Despite the convictions, he remains out on bail.
It boggles my mind. I don't get it. This is something that needs to change in our justice system. It really does.
But, you know, honestly, I think he's a flight risk, right? And it's very concerning.
Do you have anything to say to the victim's family? Loesch's sentencing hearing is set for August 18th. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Abbotsford.
Father Ray said that it made no sense to him that Loesch could now walk free. "It boggles my mind," he said. "I don't get it. It's something that needs to change in our justice system. Knowing that I can run into him at the 7-Eleven down the road, it hurts that much." The pain in his voice was unmistakable. For this father, remembering Chelsey meant more than just mourning her. He wanted people to know who she had been: goofy, fun-loving, a young woman who loved animals and who lit up rooms with her laughter. She was just 22 years old, and she was a mother. Brother Jeremiah said, when she died, a part of me died. His best friend was now gone.
I have concerns about our justice system. The laws that we have in this country which let a man like that walk free. Right out of the courtroom, if I walked outside and slapped someone, I would have been in jail. But he gets to walk free? We can have an amazing police force, which we do. The IHIT team over and the Abbotsford Police Department, credible. I can't say enough about how wonderful they've been, how professional they have been, how kind and loving they've been. And the work that Andrew and his team did, all of that's wonderful. But if we have a justice system that lets a murderer on the street and slaps his wrist while he's laughing to everybody on the way out, that man didn't even flinch when he was told he was accused for manslaughter. He didn't care. No remorse whatsoever. Apparently, he really liked Chelsey. That's a pile of garbage. He would have said something, I'm sorry this happened, and walked away. If he had any courage at all, he would have said at least that. The man is a complete coward. To wear a mask when you're heading into the courtroom? What are you hiding? You're a coward, Gary. You're an absolute coward. You prey on young girls. That was your thing. You'd bring women up to your grow up. You wouldn't let them bring up their boyfriends. You only wanted the women because you wanted to prey upon them. You had condoms in your tent and rope in your tent like a weirdo would have for a reason. You didn't want them to go up in their work. You were wanting to get a good time while you were up there.
Father Ray has vowed to push for awareness, for parents to stay close to their kids, to question their choices, and to speak up before tragedy strikes. Educate yourselves, he told reporters, because this could be you tomorrow. With this upcoming sentencing hearing, there's a petition for the sentence to be as strong as possible. Here is what it says. In 2017, my best friend, Chelsey Lea Gauthier, a 22-year-old Indigenous mother of two, was brutally taken from us. Her loss was not only deeply personal for me, but also a devastating blow to our community. Chelsey was a vibrant young woman, full of life and dreams for a future with her children. The anguish of her absence is compounded by the feeling that justice has not been fully served. Gary Donald Loesch was charged with manslaughter and committing indignities to her body. Even so, with his conviction, there isn't a minimum sentence. He took an innocent life, and I feel a murder charge with life imprisonment is a justice that Chelsey, her friends, her family, and every Indigenous man and woman will feel that he deserves. Yet, despite the severity of his crimes, there is a very real fear that justice may not be met to its fullest extent. The legal system has often inadequately addressed crimes against Indigenous women, and Chelsey deserves more than to be another statistic. Chelsey's children have been left without a mother, her family is without a beloved daughter, and I am without a best friend. The pain of her loss is immeasurable, but what deepens the wound is the failure to see justice serve its rightful course. We call upon the judicial system to serve justice without leniency in this case. We demand that Gary Donald Loesch receives the maximum sentence allowable by law for his horrific actions. It is imperative not only for Chelsey's family, but also as a statement that society will not tolerate such acts of violence and disrespect, particularly against Indigenous women. Please support this call for justice by signing this petition. Let your signature be a beacon of solidarity for Chelsey and her loved ones, and a resounding demand for accountability and justice. Together we can ensure that Chelsey's death does not go unanswered, and her spirit remains a catalyst for change. Sign this petition and help us drive the change needed to ensure justice is not a promise, but a reality in our legal system. And that's written by Cassidy York, Chelsey's best friend. At the time of me writing this script, the petition has 561 signatures. I'll put the link in the description, and please, if you feel it's right, add your name to the petition. I just want to say that across Canada, The tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, known as MMIWG, is becoming painfully familiar. I spend a lot of time on local news resources in Canada, and I honestly cannot believe how common this is. For decades, Indigenous families have sounded the alarm that their daughters, sisters, mothers, all of them face disproportionate levels of violence. And in fact, a national inquiry confirmed what families had said all along. The systemic failures in policing, justice, and in social support leave Indigenous women more vulnerable, and their cases too often neglected. Chelsey's case cannot be separated from this wider crisis. I really can't help but think where Chelsey came from has something to do with how Gary is getting away with what he did. I'll keep you updated on that sentencing, but it's not looking good. And remember, do sign that petition if you feel like it. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.